But that's so unfair, protested Wailing. Rafi should have more trust in you than that. Tell Rafi that, Mars grumbled. A typical man, Sinchita declared frostily. Then a wicked look crept into her eyes. Mars, tell me honestly, do you still find Edmund attractive? Mars looked startled. I haven't thought about him like that for a long while. She gave a hesitant shrug. I guess, well, yes, he's very nice. Why don't you have two boyfriends? Suggested Sinchita, like my mother. But I don't want to. Mars was on the verge of tears. I just want Rafi, and only Rafi. I'm very disappointed in Rafi, Wailing Stroud. I think he's being mean and nasty. Excuse me, Sinchita cut in cynically. He's a man. What do you expect? Ma suddenly got up, an excited look on her face. I don't think we should sit around here talking about boys. I think we should go and do our own investigation. Sinchita clapped her hands. Good on you, Mas. What are you what have you got in mind? Well, do you remember Mr. Fu, my uncle? Mas asked her friends. Mom's older brother? Wailing thought for a moment. Wasn't he the newspaper editor who helped us when we were solving the case of the missing movie? Mars nodded. I think we should go and talk to him. Sinchita looked at Mars curiously. But how can we help find the missing eagle? Because newspaper people always know more about what's happening than anyone else, Mars replied. He might be able to tell us something about Professor Jung that nobody else knows. She grabbed her bag. Wouldn't it be great if we cracked the case before Alvin did? Bedrock looked even more neglected in the midday sun. The piercing light showed up every hole in the roof. The cracks in the walls gave the old Spanish town mansion the appearance of having been abandoned for years. The boys hammered on the front door. Professor Jung, Alvin called at the top of his voice, but there was no sound from inside the old house. Maybe he's still asleep, he wondered out loud, or maybe he's gone out. I wonder if he's had another visitor, Rafi asked grimly. Maybe the snake sent someone else to see him. Rafi asked Azizu said and quickly reached for the doorknob. The front door was unlocked and they stepped inside. Their footsteps echoed in the vast hall. They called out to the professor but heard no reply. The house was still and silent. They realized why when they hurried up the staircase and moved through one empty room after another. Alvin stared around in amazement. Everything's gone, he said. The furniture, the professor's desk, all his books. He must have moved out. He must have been really scared last night, Rafi commented. More empty rooms greeted them downstairs. Even the huge aviary was deserted. How could he have gone? Azizu fiddled with his cap. You don't think the snake's been here, do you? They were still standing in the aviary when they heard footsteps approaching down the hall. Mars, Wailing, and Sinchita followed Mr. Fu into the room where the newspaper kept its records on microfilm. Mr. Fu was a thin, stooped man with kindly face. His eyes twinkled enthusiastically, and he looked eager to help them. You're making quite a name for yourselves, he smiled. What case are you working on now? Or is that a secret? Well, uncle, replied Mars, let's just say we've been asked to find some stolen property. Oh? Mr. Fu looked disappointed. That doesn't sound very exciting, but it belonged to a rocket scientist, Mars told him. Have you heard of Professor Julius Jung? Mr. Fu tapped his fingers on a metal filing cabinet. Now that name certainly rings a bell. Let me see. He opened a thick index book, checked through it, and then crossed to a cupboard. He selected a spool of film. Professor Jung made the news about a year ago. A very strange business, he added as he switched on the microfilm machine. He threaded the film into the machine and spooled it forward. A series of newspaper pages flashed onto the screen. He stopped at the front page of the paper, bearing a date from the July of the year before. Beneath a photo of an angry Professor Jung was a headline that announced, "Rocket Scientist Quits." Renowned rocket scientist Professor Julius Jung has quit his post in America amid rumors that he stole funds meant for his research. Jung has denied any wrongdoing. While the girls read the story, Mr. Fu made a photocopy and passed it to Mars. It seems the professor was suspected of stealing a few $1 million, he said. He had some kind of expensive hobby, quite weird, as I recall. Birds, Sinchita said. Mr. Fu nodded. Yes, that's right. He collected rare birds. Well, he was a pretty weird old bird himself. After he left the rocket center, he returned home and lived in his old house. He became a real hermit. He tried to do a follow-up story, but he refused all requests for interviews. He sounds like a very lonely and bitter man, probed Mars. He didn't have many friends, that's for sure. Although there was one person he was close to, a fellow student from his university days. Now what was his name? While he thought, Mr. Fu carefully removed the microfilm and switched off the machine, and then he snapped his fingers. Ah yes, another professor. Professor Tam, he recalled. Do you know where we could find him? Asked Wei. That's easy, Mr. Fu grinned. He's still at the university. He lectures in nuclear physics. He looked at the girls, turning serious. I know your investigation is top secret, and you can't share any information, but if Julius Jung did steal money, he might be quite dangerous. I'd be very careful of him if I were you. The man stood in the doorway to the aviary was wearing a business suit. His face was flushed with anger. Raphael guessed he was in his 50s. Who are you? The stranger demanded, his gaze sweeping over the three boys. What are you doing in the professor's house? We could ask you the same question, replied Alvin. Don't be smart, boy, the man snapped. There are laws against breaking into people's homes. We didn't break in, Raphael explained. We are working for the professor. Is that so? The man retorted suspiciously. Well, I'm his neighbor. My house is next door. He moved inside for a closer look at them. Weren't you the kids who were here last night with the police? Raphael nodded. We found the professor after he'd been knocked out. The neighbor shook his head bitterly. All kinds of strange things have been going on in here. Loud noises, shouts, motorbikes, and then the police. I'm quite glad to see the last of Professor Jung. So he has moved out? Azizul quizzed him. This morning, about 9 o'clock, the man confirmed. The removal company van arrived just when I was having breakfast. I dropped everything and came running in here to see what was happening. They packed up everything, birds and all. Now at last I may be able to get some peace, he sighed. So that was the last time you saw Professor Jung? Alvin wanted to know. The neighbor raised a surprised eyebrow. No, he wasn't here. A friend of his supervised the move. Someone told Tam from the university. I haven't seen Jung since yesterday. Without warning, the glass wall of the aviary shattered as the first bullet drove through it.